So welcome to Spoiler-Full Reviews, where I'm going to be talking about story, gameplay, aesthetics, and time value of different games and whether or not it's worth it. With full spoilers, of course. So today we're going to be talking about a game called Carrion. Carrion is a game developed by Phobia Game Studios, distributed by Devolver Digital. It recently blew up, and so a lot of people are claiming that it's one of the best indie horror games out there today. Basically, think The Thing from the classic horror movies, except with less social deception because that's going to be saved for another game. You know, a lot of games lately have been inspired by The Thing. Interesting. To their credit, who wouldn't want to fly around as a spaghetti and meatball monster trying to escape to monstrous freedom away from this underground weird-ass facility? So starting out with the story of Carrion, you play as a monster, as I previously said, that breaks out of its containment unit and is unleashed upon this laboratory. The story of Carrion is not really spoon-fed to you, but it's not really the focus of the game. Mostly it's about running around and being a monster and grabbing people, so the gameplay is where this game really shines. While navigating through the lab, there's a couple of hints towards a bigger overarching story, but they're just kind of given to you in little flashbacks scattered throughout the game. These show humans coming into an excavation site, which is currently the lab, and they may or may not unleash the monster. Or at least at the end, turns out one of them is the monster, and it's kind of left unclear whether or not this is the past or the future, or what the heck is going on. Honestly, it's a little confusing. And even doing some quick Googling and trying to unpack the story, you don't really find out too much about what the heck happened. At the end of the game, though, the monster does escape, assuming that you finish the game properly, now acquiring all sorts of different abilities, including the ability to shapeshift into a human. Similar to what you saw during these kind of flashbacks, and then it goes out into the world and basically, yay, monster is free, except not yay if you're a person in that world, because now there's a monster out there. So it kind of ends on a happy note, which is kind of uncommon for horror games, I guess. So for an overall verdict for the story, it's interesting enough and serves the purpose of the game good, so thumbs up to it. Except don't be expecting any deep, heavy lore about what the heck is going on or what this monster is. So now talking about the gameplay. As the spaghetti monster, you move around and squish through tunnels and through holes to navigate throughout this entire map, which is this crazy underground laboratory. Honestly, they nailed it. It's one of the most satisfying things to do in the game. Just kind of moving around, stretching out your monstrous red tentacles, and scaring the bejesus out of all sorts of scientists that are in the facility. Fun fact, you don't have to kill them, you can just kind of go in there and be like, yo, what's up? And then they just panic in fear. It's kind of fun being the monster for once. Otherwise, you have these tentacles that can reach out, grab enemies, chill dudes or objects, and swing around like you've just graduated from your master's degree and then a pandemic canceled graduation. So while this was a little clunky on PC to navigate moving and eating all at the same time, this kind of would make more sense on a controller layout. Mostly because you have two thumbsticks, whereas on the computer you have to use your left click and right click to either move or jump away. Also too, the abilities that you do acquire as the monster are actually really interesting, and they're well placed out to kind of make you feel like you're continuously progressing throughout the game. Basically how it works is they're locked based on how big of a monster you are, but the moveset includes things like temporary shielding, creatine spikes, mind control, invisibility, and charging through people with monstrous force. Later on in the game, this actually works to the game's advantage because when you're approaching some of these scenarios, suddenly you have so many different options on how you want to go in there and kill all the scientists and machines and drones and all of that type of stuff. The difficulty of the game isn't too high, which is nice, but it's high enough where when you unlock these new abilities, there are a couple of various enemies that they kind of throw in as well, just to kind of keep things fresh. One thing though that I really think that the game suffered from was not really having a map. Oh my god, especially at the beginning, you could tell that the developers were trying to make it more like Metroidvania, which means that you have to like backtrack and stuff like that. But I found myself just getting lost for like 10 minutes straight, just looking around for where is the next little place I can access. The good news though is right at the end of the game you actually enter into this big laboratory section where it shows you which sections you have kind of missed, and on top of that too you can look up a map of the actual laboratory online, so then you can kind of track it out yourself in order to complete everything if you're a completionist out there. So for the verdict, big thumbs up. Holy shit, this is such a fun game to play. Later the game, like I mentioned, became more linear, which eliminated the whole map problem, and the difficulty is actually very well balanced where you don't feel overpowered and still feel like you can escape the lab. It's just going to be a little bit difficult with all the humans trying to stop you. Okay, so talking about the aesthetics of Carrion, man oh man, it is very creepy. But this is the best way possible. Once again, you're the monster here. It really does feel like you're in this old 80s secret underground facility, and as you start to increase your spread, then there's more gore that just kind of lays out throughout the entire map. It's really cool, especially when you go revisit places and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I've been here and I destroyed everybody here. The pixelated graphics give it a nice 80s atmosphere, which is kind of like a retro horror movie, which personally I really like. The tentacles too are hella creepy, and just like the smoothness of motion as you're going around just makes you feel so out of place, which a monster should be. The music also was very creepy, but overall not super memorable. I mean, I wouldn't put this on as background music if I was just kind of sitting there and working or anything, unless I was in like a spooky mood, but what does that even mean? The sound effects, on the other hand, holy shit do they do justice to the game. Screams and the guttural munching are very satisfyingly creepy. Even smashing things sounds very creepy and sudden, which is once again really good because you're the monster here and you want to like do these things. So when it happens, you're not scared and you're like, hell yeah. So overall, on a verdict, beyond the gameplay, the atmosphere is great, and each of the different maps feel like they're distinguished based on the design. Definite thumbs up on this one. As for the time value of this game, right now this game is available on Steam for 23 Canadian dollars or on Nintendo Switch for 19.99 Canadian dollars. Otherwise, you can get it on PC and Xbox Game Pass for free, which is how I kind of accessed it myself. It took me about 6 hours to finish the game. That's not including all the full completion. I had plenty of stuff to do at the end of the game, but I just didn't want to backtrack just because of the whole map issue. If you have Game Pass, I would definitely recommend you to play it. But if you don't have Game Pass, I would recommend checking out some other titles. I mean, this is really fun, but it's not a must-buy indie game that is going to revolutionize everything out there. Unless you've got just cash to throw away, because while it is a short, this is a very well put together game. And obviously we want to be able to support our developers who are making really cool games out there. And so that's going to wrap up this spoiler-full review of Carrion. Let me know if you agree with what I said or if you disagree. Better yet, if you have an idea on what the heck is going on story-wise, please comment down below, because I would really like to know. Also, if you have a neat indie game suggestion that you would like to see, let me know. I have a couple of these planned out, but am looking to fill out the roster a little bit more. Last but not least, you can watch me play these games live at twitch.tv/GhostSoulPlays. Links all in the description. Thank you so much for watching.